He was handsome, intelligent, and charming, everything you'd never expect from a monster. Women trusted him, police underestimated him, and America had no idea that behind his smile hid one of the most sadistic serial killers in history. He lured victims with kindness, then unleashed unimaginable cruelty. His name, Ted Bundy. But how did a promising law student transform into a predator who terrorized the nation and left behind a trail of horror that still chills us today? He was handsome, intelligent, and charming, everything you'd never expect from a monster. Women trusted him, police underestimated him, and America had no idea that behind his smile hid one of the most sadistic serial killers in history. His name, Ted Bundy. The story begins in the 1970s, a time when the United States was still adjusting to cultural change, but nothing could prepare the country for the terror Bundy would bring. On the outside, Ted Bundy seemed like the perfect young man. He studied law, worked in politics, and knew how to impress people with his intelligence and charisma. Friends described him as polite, even kind, but beneath that carefully built image lurked a darkness no one suspected. Bundy's hunting ground was college campuses, parks, and quiet suburban neighborhoods. He had a routine approaching young women while pretending to be injured, often with a cast or crutches, and asking for help. His victims, believing they were assisting a helpless man, walked straight into a trap. Once they let their guard down, Bundy would strike with unimaginable brutality. The first known murders began around 1974 in Washington state. Women began disappearing without a trace. Janice Ott, Denise Nasland, Linda Heliol, young, bright, full of life. The pattern was chilling, yet investigators couldn't connect the dots quickly enough. Witnesses described a man named Ted who drove a tan Volkswagen Beetle, but the idea that a polite law student could be the monster seemed unthinkable. Bundy thrived on this illusion. By day, he was the charming neighbor. By night, he became a predator driven by uncontrollable urges. He wasn't just killing, he was manipulating everyone around him, playing a double life with terrifying precision. As the bodies mounted, panic spread. Women were warned not to walk alone at night. College campuses lived in fear, and still, Bundy kept striking. His confidence grew, his cruelty escalated, and police struggled to keep up. He knew how to blend in, how to smile his way out of suspicion, and how to leave behind just enough confusion to stay one step ahead. But Bundy's trail of horror was only beginning. By the time authorities realized the scale of his crimes, his killings had spread across multiple states, leaving a blood-soaked path from Washington to Utah and beyond. He was no longer just a suspect, he was a phantom terrorizing an entire nation. And yet, Ted Bundy's true evil was still to be revealed. He would not only kill, but escape justice in ways that seemed almost impossible. Because Bundy wasn't done hunting, and his next moves would shock America like never before. By the mid-1970s, the nation was beginning to realize a horrifying truth: Ted Bundy wasn't just a clever law student or a charming neighbor. He was a predator, crossing state lines, leaving behind bodies and outsmarting authorities at every turn. And his cruelty was only getting worse. After a string of disappearances in Washington, Bundy moved his hunt to Utah, Colorado, and Idaho. Women vanished under similar circumstances, approached by a man in need of help, then brutally attacked. Police now had witnesses, descriptions, even a name, Ted. Yet every time suspicion grew, Bundy's clean-cut image worked in his favor. Friends, co-workers, even girlfriends refused to believe he was capable of such horror. But the evidence mounted. In 1975, Bundy was finally arrested in Utah. When police discovered burglary tools and handcuffs in his car, a tan Volkswagen Beetle that would later become infamous. Though he was linked to multiple kidnappings, Bundy acted as his own lawyer in court. Charming the media and manipulating legal proceedings, he seemed untouchable. Then came the unthinkable. Bundy escaped. Twice. In 1977, during a court hearing in Colorado, he jumped out of a second-story library window and vanished for 6 days. When captured, security was tightened, yet months later, he managed to cut a hole in his jail ceiling and walk right out of custody. Authorities were humiliated. America was stunned, and Bundy was free to kill again. He fled to Florida, where his crimes reached their most brutal peak. In January 1978, Bundy broke into a sorority house at Florida State University. What happened inside was pure savagery. He attacked 4 women, killing 2, bludgeoning and biting his victims with terrifying violence. Only weeks later, he abducted and murdered 12-year-old Kimberly Leach, sealing his fate as one of the most cold-blooded killers in American history. His arrogance finally caught up with him. In February 1978, Bundy was pulled over in a stolen car. This time, the evidence was overwhelming. Trials followed, each one a media circus. Bundy cross-examined witnesses, smiled at cameras, and even received marriage proposals from women who believed in his charm. But behind the courtroom theatrics lay undeniable proof: fingerprints, eyewitnesses, bite mark evidence, all pointing directly to him. In 1979, Ted Bundy was sentenced to death. Yet even on death row, he continued to manipulate. He gave interviews, denied some murders, confessed to others, and toyed with investigators desperate for answers. To this day, the true number of Bundy's victims remains unknown. He admitted to more than 30, but experts believe there may have been many more. On January 24, 1989, Ted Bundy was executed in the electric chair at Florida State Prison. Crowds gathered outside, some celebrating, others simply relieved the nightmare was over. But his legacy of terror lived on. Bundy's story isn't just about murder, it's about deception, control, and the terrifying reality that evil can wear a friendly face. He proved that monsters don't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes, they walk among us, smiling, waiting for the moment to strike. And perhaps the scariest thought of all